Well, I'm here under duress, and in the military I learned to always follow my commander-in-chief. So I'm here under order of my commander-in-chief. So I was in the Army. I joined the Army in 1983, 1983, 1996. Reagan was president too. Remember, we did have George H.W. Bush come talk to us. When he came to talk, they came through and took all of our mics because we were all in vehicles, and so he was giving a speech over the radio, and they came and took all of our mics. I don't know why. They didn't want us to say anything to the president. But no, I did basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia. I'll never forget, they didn't have the reception station there at that time. They were building a new reception station, so we had to fly into Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And I went to the MEP station in Detroit, and when I got up there, they put me in a flea bag hotel somewhere. It was just absolutely horrible. And of course, I didn't get any sleep because all of the rooms were open to one another, and so I was up there with a whole bunch of other idiots that were shipping out too, and so they were having a party. So you're young and dumb, you party, so we partied. And so then we got on a plane at Detroit Metro and headed to the south, and we landed in Atlanta, Georgia. When we got in Atlanta, Georgia, they had these cattle cars there for us to get into. And there wasn't any room to set, and of course I didn't sleep on the plane. It was the first time ever I was on a big aircraft, and so we didn't sleep on the plane because we were all kind of geeked up and excited. Of course, you're talking to everybody, and everybody's got a John Wayne story. You know, when I get there, they're not going to do this to me, and they're not going to do that to me. I'll give them the what for. So I was up that whole night too, and I get on a cattle car, and it is absolutely standing room only. And we have to drive from Atlanta, Georgia to Fort Benning, Georgia, Columbus, Georgia. I'm sorry, when they got the cattle cars, we went from Atlanta, Georgia to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. So on these cattle cars, standing up the whole time. And of course, I got to the point where I was so tired, I would fall asleep standing up, and you'd wake up and it was like you went through a time warp. And so they got us from Fort Jackson to the reception center. It was probably about 4 o'clock in the morning, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. They got us all off and took us in front of this housing barracks, big brick building, and they set us all in formation. We had to set, and then they playing some stupid video that I couldn't pay attention to. And of course, you're brand new, you don't know any better, and there's some E2 nothing private coming through and kicking you in the back and screaming at you to stay awake and everything. He might as well be general of the Army as far as you're concerned. So, you know, you do what he told. Later on, after you get a little bit of experience, you think, man, I should have just clocked him. Because he had absolutely no authority at all. But they abused their authority. So they kick us and keep us awake. And so finally about 5 o'clock in the morning, they said, okay, they assigned us a number and told us where our racks were. We're supposed to get our racks done. So we grab our bedding and we go. Now this is the first time I'm in this place. I'm a kid from Camden Frontier School. I haven't been anything bigger than a barn. And I get into this place and it's got stairways and hallways and everything running everywhere, and I'm completely confused. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. I don't want to be in the wrong spot because I don't want to be that guy that gets all the way through basic training without them knowing my name. So, because if they don't know your name at graduation, you did good. So I'm trying to find this place, and finally I find this empty rack, and I'm looking around, and I find a number, and I think, okay, was that the number they assigned me? I think it was, and so I figure that's my rack. So find a locker. Of course, it's dark because other people had gotten there before us, and so we're wandering around in a dark barracks trying to find where we're supposed to stay. I put my stuff in this locker and find the latrine. I go to the latrine and come back and I'm thinking, and I had a mustache then. I thought, man, should I shave? I'll have plenty of time to do that in the morning. I don't have time to do that in the morning. So I thought, well, finally I'm gonna get some sleep. So I crawl up in the rack, and just as I lay my head down, these fire bells are going off and all the lights come on. I see everybody jumping up and they're grabbing, and half the guys are putting on uniforms. I don't have a uniform. Still got civilian clothes. I see all these other things. I thought, well, that must be for those guys. Can't be for us new guys at Cape. So I laid my stupid little head back down. Next thing, the mattress come flying off the rack, and I come flying off the rack, and I landed on the floor, and I had somebody 2 inches from my face screaming that I better be up and in formation. I don't know where formation is. So I jump up, I throw my clothes on, I see people running all these different directions, and so I'm trying to follow, and I get outside, and just as I'm coming outside, this 4' 1" black female drill sergeant catches me and starts screaming about what's that crap on my face, and I'm going, get that shaved off now. I was like, oh crap, I didn't have time anymore. So I'm running back upstairs with a dry razor, took my mustache off, come running back down to where this formation thing is, and I finally find it, and there isn't anybody there. But I see this group marching off. And I thought, I'll just jump in with them and pretend I'm part of that group. Well, luckily, it did happen to be my group, so I jumped in, we got to the chow hall. Of course, then we come back, we go through orientation, we get our hair shaved and get treated like absolute dirt. But I still have not had any sleep, and now I'm going on my 4th day. And I am so stinking tired. I'm falling asleep standing up. I learned how to sleep with my eyes wide open. They didn't know I was asleep, but I wasn't there. I was completely gone. So after we were there a couple days, they loaded us on we went through CIF, which is Central Issuing Facility, got our uniforms. They loaded us on Greyhound buses. And of course, we get on the bus, and everybody's a little bit loosened up now, because we've been in the Army 4 days. So we deserve some respect. So we're on this bus, and of course everybody starts loosening up, and everybody starts telling their John Wayne stories of the drill sergeant's not going to do this, and they're not going to do that, and they're not going to do the other thing. And we got on a bus, and of course they gave us a box lunch that was probably the most disgusting food I've ever seen in my life. I thought to myself, why did I ever complain about anything my mother made when I saw that lunch? It was horrible. That's what was supposed to get us from South Carolina to Fort Benning, Georgia. So we take these buses down. Of course, some of us need tobacco. And some of us want some soda because we weren't allowed to have soda. And so we got collected some money together. We had that brand new GI money. We were rich. We had $300 a month. And so we all had a little bit of money in our pocket. See, back then, when we used to get paid, it wasn't check to bank. You'd actually bring a pay officer into the area with $6 million worth of money, and you'd have to go through and do the whole thing, get paid, and got actual cash. And so we had actual cash in our pocket, which was probably a bad thing to do to give to privates, but anyway. So we coerced the bus drivers into pulling over at a convenience store so that we could get all the little, the hoagies and the Zoom Zooms and all the different things that we were supposed to have, and we got. And so we headed on down to Fort Benning, Georgia. When we got down to Fort Benning, Georgia, it was dark by the time we got there. It was probably about 10 o'clock at night, and it had started to rain. It was raining. Beautiful Georgia rain. We didn't know which barracks we were going to. We didn't know if we were going to Sand Hill. We didn't know if we were going to Harmony Church. so we didn't know exactly what complex we were going to. And so we started pulling in, we went and we turned, and we realized, okay, we're all going to Sand, what we affectionately call now Sand Hill. But it was the Sand Hill complex, and it was brand new, and they called them spaceships, a new type of barracks, where the bottom is nothing but pillars and an area in the center, and then everything else was out, and you had a second, third, and fourth floor that was the barracks. And so we come pulling into there. Well, this complex had just newly been built, and so we were the first ones into that particular barracks as we came in. And so there isn't anything growing. There's just this red Georgia clay. From the road, red Georgia clay down to a sidewalk, and then all this concrete, which was the company area. So the buses come pulling in, everybody got a little bit quiet, fear of the unknown. And the buses were sitting there rumbling low level lights come on. And we see this guy that was probably about 12'6". Great, big, huge, 6'2" black man, weighed probably 350 pounds with the brown round on. And all you could see is his eyes and his teeth as he was coming up the hill to the bus. He come on the bus, and instantly he was like, "So how was the trip for you boys?" It was fine. So did y'all have a good time? Does everybody have everything they need? Talking real sweet and nice to us. So of course everybody started to loosen up. One moron went, "Yeah, we stopped and got hoagies." And
Oh no.
What kind of a moron? Who recruited him? And so he said, "Oh, that's nice, that's nice, that's nice." And he went from angel to demon like that. He started screaming, "You got 10 seconds to get off this bus, and 8 of them are gone. 9, 10. Everybody got up, and now everybody's trying to rush off this bus. 50 people on a bus trying to rush off the same door in 2 seconds. I saw big guys pick little guys up and throw them behind them to get off the bus. These big tough guys who were talking all this stuff. Who wasn't going to make them do anything? And I'll never forget that first night we come running out, they had the bellies of the buses opened up. Now you got a thing that's called a sea bag. It's about this tall, about that big around, holds everything you own, and then some. Everything's got to be in there. And that's pretty heavy when you got everything in there. And so as we're coming out the bus, they're screaming orders at us. Now, I'm from Michigan. This drill sergeant happened to end up being my drill sergeant. His name was Drill Sergeant Wall from Alabama. I thought I'd entered a whole different country. I could not understand any of the English that he was using. I was in Georgia. So I'm trying to listen very intently and follow the orders as given. All I'm hearing is, so not to get in trouble, you just watch and see what everybody else is doing. And heck yeah, you're a lemming. You do what everybody else does. You don't want to be the odd man out. So they're screaming for us to grab a duffel bag and hold it up over our heads. Okay, so I get to the side of the bus, and of course I'm wearing RPGs, and it's raining. Rape prevention glasses, because they're really ugly black frame ones. That's why I call them that. It's raining. I've got rain all over my glasses. I can't see. I'm at the side of the bus. I'm looking, and of course I'm trying to find black writing on an OD green bag that's now wet from the rain. And I'm trying to find my bag. And that drill sergeant was right up and in my ear screaming, "I didn't say get yours, just grab a bag." So I grab a bag, and of course I happen to get the fat man's bag. Well, he's got a lot more clothes because he's a lot bigger, so he wears the extra size stuff. So I've got probably the heaviest bag, and I weigh all of about 148 pounds at this point. So I got it up over my head, and they're screaming for us to run to the company area. Well, the problem was it was raining. And I don't know if if you know what red Georgia clay is like. But yeah, it's like trying to run on solid cow pies, going downhill. And so we were all running in a line, and of course, by the time 50 people have made it ahead of you, it's even more slippery and muddy, but there's this mud track that you're following. I've got my bag up over my head, and the guy 3 ahead of me slipped. I went face first and caught the sidewalk right there. Out cold. So of course the person behind him went to go around, and the drill sergeant made it from the bus to the person in front of me and screamed, "Don't go around him, go over him." So about another 20 people went over the top of him. Just ground him into the, I don't think he ever got the red out of those uniforms when he did come to. But they got us into the area. And now this is what's called Hell Night for drill sergeants. What we have to do, I was a drill sergeant too, so one of the things that drill sergeants have to do is you have to take all of these young men, and in a very, very, very short time, you have to make them think alike, act alike. They have to be one great big huge unit, does the same thing. And that's hard to do when you've got Jewish kids from New York, and you've got rednecks from Alabama, and you got surfer dudes from California, and you've got farm kids from Michigan. You got people from all different walks of life, backgrounds, religious ideology, socialization, kids that grew up in 2-parent families and single-parent families, kids that grew up in loving homes, and kids that grew up on the street, and you've got all of them all at one time. And in 6 weeks, you're expected to take them and turn them into something special. Turn them into men. Not what they're putting out now, but turn them into men. That's a hard job. So the way you do it is you give them something common to hate, and that's the drill sergeant. And you give them something common to fear, and that's the drill sergeant. And you sleep with a guard on your neck every night because you know somebody wants to cut your throat. But that's how you do it. It's called Hell Night, and it's necessary. So we get into this company area, and they start putting us in formation. And of course, we've got a lot of paperwork to do that night. The drill sergeants are busy. They've called drill sergeants from other units to come in. That's typically what happens, because you've got a lot of stuff to do that night. And so they're ordering us to do certain things. So we're all standing there with these bags over our head, brand new, thinking to ourselves, that recruiter lied. This wasn't on the video. And so they're doing things like, drop them. Drop them. Bad word, bad word, bad word, drop them. They wanted us to drop the sea bag, so everybody does this. We didn't say drop them in front of you, we said drop them, pick them up. So pick them up, drop them. They hit you in the head, goes down. Okay? So then they go, get down on a knee, kneel. So they all kneel down. Stand up, lay on your left side, lay on your right side. Front rest position, stand up, pick up your bags, over your head, drop them. Okay? So just all night long while they're doing this paperwork. So I remember one time I dropped the bag and it hit my cover and it came off. Well, I'm the only guy standing there without a cover on. Of course, you're not supposed to be outside without a cover. So I don't know what I'm gonna do because I haven't been given an order. I gotta stand, I don't want anybody to know my name. So this drill sergeant gets right up in my ear and screams, "Get your head under cover!" Okay. I'm not gonna be that guy that doesn't do exactly what I'm told. He said, "Get your head under cover." I got down on the ground and started pushing my head under my hat. I was called Jerry Lewis. Wanted to know what comedy tour I was from. And whether okay, so he didn't want me to do that, so I stood up, put the thing on, I'm thinking, dodge that bullet, coming pretty close. I'll never forget, we had a private that was in our unit. Kid's last name was Neil, Private Neil. And he was a tall, skinny black kid with great big round glasses. He didn't have the RPGs, he had his own personal glasses on. And quite a learned kid, quite a astute kid, which was kind of odd because I was in the infantry. I mean, let's face facts, they don't put the brain surgeons in the infantry. So, he was there, and of course they're screaming out names, and they tell you when you hear your name, answer, here drill sergeant, and run to the front of the formation, right? And so we're learning how to break formation. You take a step back, look both ways, take the shortest route, and double time. And so they're doing this stuff, lay on your left side, stand up, kneel. So he'd hear his name clear from the back, he'd go, hey, drill sergeant, and you'd see him just trucking up to the front. Get up to the front. There's two privates in front of the drill sergeant. Who are you? Private Neil. Did you, what are you doing up here? Get your stupid butt back here. Two other drill sergeants chewing on him all the way back, and Neil's back there like, pick it up, doing push-ups, 25 push-ups, he's doing push-ups, he's standing up. He's just bewildered. Doing all these things pretty soon. Neil! Yeah, drill sergeant! I'm running to the front again. I'm thinking, oh, Lord, I think they meant for us to kneel. So I kneeled and I watched Neil go up and get just decimated again and get just treated like crap all the way back. So they're doing all this stuff, stand up and everything. Well, I'm paying attention, they're down to the ends and they scream, Neil! Nothing. Neil's learned. We're all on one knee. They scream, kneel again, and I'm thinking, we're already kneeling. Is there a Private Neil? Here, drill sergeant. What's wrong with your ear, son? Are you stupid or just deaf? Oh, he got just ripped a new one up there, and I thought, man, am I glad my knee's not here. Or on your side, or dropped. So that was my first experience. And they took us up into the barracks, and of course we had 2 hours of the do's and don'ts, what you can do, what you can't do. I can't remember any of it. I don't think anybody can from that night. And then they put us into bed. Now our drill sergeant Wall, who happened to be the first one on the bus, he was a sadistic SOB. What he'd like to do is every night before we hit the rack, did this little thing called Airborne Rangers. And the drill sergeant has a whistle. So you come in, you say, everybody lock up at the end of your bunk. When I blow the whistle, I want to hear you sound off loudly with airborne. When I blow the whistle again, you'll say Ranger. When you say Ranger, you'll run in place, and your knees better come higher, break the horizontal plane. And when I blow the whistle again, I want to hear push-ups, and you will, from running into the front-leaning rest position, and start doing push-ups until I blow the whistle again. And you'll jump up, you call it Airborne Rangers, Airborne Ranger push-ups. So he would come in and he'd do that for about a half an hour every night, just to screw with us. Now our barracks, being brand new, was all screwed up, so our temperature was about 59 degrees in the barracks. But this is June and July in Georgia. So in the morning when you'd fall out for formation, it was like a 50-pound gorilla jumping on your back the minute you hit that hot, moist Georgia air. From just being used to being in a barracks that was 59 degrees. They tried to get maintenance in and get the AC fixed. It never got fixed. It stayed 59 degrees the whole time I was there. Everybody had the flu. In fact, I remember on our last test, which was a 15-mile road march in bivouac, I had tonsillitis so bad that my tonsils were swollen and bleeding in the middle of my throat. I was running a temperature of 104, and I was told that if I didn't make that 15-mile road march in that bivouac, I'd have to get recycled. I was not doing that for anything. I suffered through those 3 days, that 15 miles, being sicker than a dog. And I watched other people drop out on that road march, and I thought, not this cat. I'm not being recycled at all. So you learn how to push, you learn how to persevere, you learn how to push through. I think back then it was a good thing. Young men learned how to be men. You learned respect, you learned duty, you learned honor. It was back at that time that we used to know what our oath of office was. We understood it. We had NCOs that were from Vietnam. In fact, when I was in the food that we were getting, which was sea rats, I thought was absolutely excellent. It was the green cans in boxes from Korea in World War II. Those are delicious. And then they changed over to the LURPs. Those would kill you. And then, of course, we settled on the MREs, which stands for Meals Rejected by Ethiopians. It was horrible. So everywhere we went, we'd always try to trade our MREs for local cuisine. And it was usually way better. Those poor kids, they didn't know what they were getting. We're probably guilty for half the population all over the place having colon cancer now because we gave all of our MREs. But I think back then there was a different standard. I think back then we were still in the Cold War. We still were training for war. I was on a rapid deployment group. I was a night fighter. I received mine, which is one of the highest peacetime awards you can get, which is the Expert Infantry Badge. I received that over in the Arabic Republic of Egypt. That's a test to be an expert infantry, to wear expert infantry. There's a series of infantry things that you have to do. One of them is a grueling 12-mile march with 140 pounds on your back. And over there, we have to do the road march. At the end of the road march, as soon as you made the road march, you had 3 hours to make it. I made mine in 2 hours and 39 minutes in 120-degree heat. And we had to wear a 140-pound rucksack, but we were also in a hostile zone, so we had to wear everything more than what anybody else had to wear to get their EIB. So we had to wear K-pots and flak vests, and we had to carry all of our basic load while we were doing this road march. At the end of the road march, you'd get there, they'd have a poncho laid out, and they'd have 3 weapons that were completely tore apart and laid in a pile. And you had 2 minutes to assemble all 3 weapons, do a functions check on them, and lay them down. You had 2 minutes to do that. At the end of that, if you passed that, which was the final test, they marched you right from there, about 1 click forward. You just got done doing all this, and you had to shoot 40 out of 40 targets. You had to qualify expert. So out of 322 of us, there was 13 of us that were awarded the EIB there. So that was a pretty grueling test. But in the military, in the Army, the infantry is called the 11 Bravo, 11B. And we always say there's only 2 MOSs, and MOS is a military occupational skill. In the Army, we say there's only 2 MOSs, 11 Bravo and support. Because everybody else that goes into the Army, they learn a job, they go to permanent party, and they do their job. The infantry, you can't have them killing people and breaking things. There's just nothing for us to do other than train constantly for the time in which the country needs us. So it kind of sucks being an infantryman because you learn all these skills and you do this thing. You don't go anywhere and do that. You just go somewhere and train constantly in case and until they need you. And so everything else is done for the military. Now, with that, everything we do is a leadership school. Everything we do is a grueling, miserable school. And because of that, we got rank a lot faster. In fact, I was one of the youngest staff sergeants promoted in the Army in a peacetime Army at that time. Now you get younger E6s promoted in wartime, but those are usually battlefield promotions. So during peacetime, I was one of the youngest E6s ever promoted. I was 26. I was 25. 24, 25, something like that. But I was promoted to E6, so I had just enough time in grade, just enough time in service and received that. But I think it was a different Army back then. I think it was a different time. It was the Cold War. We didn't have all this woke ideology. We weren't trying to destroy America. We actually loved America. We had vets from Vietnam that were our NCOs at that time and our officers, and they knew just how miserable war was. And so they were better NCOs. They prepped us better. We understood what our oath was. We understood what it meant to defend the Constitution, and we were tested on it. They don't do that anymore. We have officers, we have NCOs, we have young troops that are taking an oath to the Constitution without even understanding what that oath is that they're taking. In fact, if anybody heard about the new DOD memo that just came out, they issued it in August, and then on the 27th of September, they reissued it. And in section 3.3 of that same DOD memo, it said that the military could be used for local law enforcement, and they gave them lethal authority to do that. That's the first time ever in the history of America that that's been done. The military has never had the authority to use lethal force on American citizens on American soil. This is disturbing. It's disturbing because I know that there's a lot of troops that will do it when they're ordered to do it. When I was in, especially since after Lieutenant Kelly's trial, the whole thing was you follow orders, but you have an obligation to not follow unlawful orders. And so we were tested many times with unlawful orders to see whether we would do it or not. And that's a tough call. It's a tough decision when it's given to you. But young troops don't know how to resist that order to do horrible things unless they're tested on it, and we just don't have that anymore. During Katrina, we saw that there was a National Guard unit that they came down and said, okay, we're gonna go house to house and strip people of their weapons. There was only one squad leader that said, no, me and my squad won't do it. And they said, well, we'll bring you up on general courts martial, and he said, do what you gotta do, but we're not doing that. We took an oath to the Constitution. And so they didn't want it to become too big of a news story, so they said, well, okay, we're gonna leave you guys back as rear detachment guard. And they went to another squad, and they were more than happy to go door to door and strip the people from a hurricane of their weapons. See, this has been a test. We've been watching this, Waco, Ruby Ridge. It's all been a test to see how much the soldiers will do and to see how much the American public will put up with. We've got to get back to our base. And the only way that's going to happen is us older vets need to remind these younger vets why we're vets.